You're listening to Mr. Thursday Night. Now here's Brett Gombita.
Welcome back, everyone. It's episode 2 of Mr. Thursday Night here with Brett Gombita. I may not have seen the blowout coming, but I am 1-0 officially as I did pick the Chargers in the Hall of Fame game. Stay tuned with me. We're going to recap that game as well as previewing the triple header that's on deck for today. And we'll start off with the Hall of Fame game recap. 34-7 Chargers. The opening kickoff fumble recovery from Kendall Williamson set the tone there as the Chargers capitalized with 7 points right off the bat. Trey Lance to Will Dissly. The Lions in their first 4 possessions in this Hall of Fame game, fumble, punt, interception, interception. When you start games like that, it's hard to come from behind and win. Detroit did cut it to 7, though, early on a Craig Reynolds touchdown run, but there was an immediate answer there from Lance and the Chargers, capped off by a Keandre Lambert-Smith touchdown. The Chargers did add a couple of field goals in the third quarter as well. Cameron Dicker got the nod in this game as there's no kicker battle going on in Los Angeles. He did miss an attempt early on, but that shouldn't be anything to really worry about. And a late game touchdown by Kamani Vital made it 34-7. The most points scored by a team in the Hall of Fame game since 2002. The New York Football Giants put up 34 against the Houston Texans. And the home team streak ends. The home team had won every Hall of Fame game since 2021. So that 4-game stretch comes to an end with the designated away Chargers getting the win. And I said I was going to name a player of the game. Your inaugural, very first ever Mr. Thursday Night player of the game is no other than Trey Lance. 13 for 20, 120 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. He proved he still belongs in this league. Seems like he's got the number 3 spot locked up for sure. Now maybe he can challenge Taylor Heineke for that QB number 2 spot. 3 more preseason games for him to do so. Now moving on from the Hall of Fame game, we got a triple header as I mentioned. Colts-Ravens, Bengals-Eagles, and Raiders-Seahawks. Lots of exciting storylines on tap. We're going to start off by recapping each team's offseason, their draft picks, their signings, and some other things of relevance. So we'll start off in Indianapolis. How did their offseason go? Starting with their draft, Tyler Warren out of Penn State in the first round. That's everything the Colts could have dreamed for after Colston Loveland went to Chicago a few picks earlier. There's really been no consistency at the tight end position ever since Eric Ebron's ridiculous year, which, holy moly, that was 7 years ago. So it's definitely good that the Colts can bring in a guy that can kind of do everything, block, receive, and maybe even line up in the Wildcat. Did it a lot at Penn State. Then they snagged JT Tuimoloau in the second round out of Ohio State. That's just going to be a good depth pick for this year, but in the future it's going to look promising because the Colts have 3 edge rushers on the current roster that are going into a contract year. So Tuimoloau is going to get these opportunities, although they might not come right away. And the same could kind of be said for Justin Wally, who they picked in the third round out of Missouri. He played a lot of slot corner last year at Missouri, which is where Kenny Moore's at now. But with injuries and potential departures, Wally could see the field anytime. The rest of their draft goes as follows. Offensive tackle Jalen Travis out of Iowa State. Running back DJ Giddens from Kansas State. Quarterback Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. Defensive lineman Tim Smith from Alabama. And linebacker Hunter Waller from Wisconsin. Some of the key signings for the Colts in the offseason. Daniel Jones, who could start some games this year. We're going to dive into the QB battle as the episode progresses. A couple of defensive backs, corner Charvarius Ward and safety Cameron Bynum. Both could start day one, as secondary was an area of need on this team. And then running back Khalil Herbert. There was really no depth last year behind Jonathan Taylor, so getting a guy like Herbert could solve that issue there. And speaking of that QB battle, let's talk about the initial depth chart. It said Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones at the QB1 position. Obviously, this is because of some injury concerns around Richardson as well as just some inconsistent throwing of the football. Richardson has missed more games in his career than he's played, so bringing in another stable veteran and guy that can lead an offense is definitely something the Colts are going to be thanking themselves for in the future, I think. We'll have to see, though, if Daniel Jones can get back to that form that he once was for one season, because in 6 years as the Giants QB, he only had one winning season. Got kicked to the curb by the Giants last year after a 2-8 start. Maybe he learned a thing or two, though, from watching Sam Darnold and learning from Kevin O'Connell. As for the Colts' opponent tonight, the Baltimore Ravens, they had a great draft as well. When have they never had a good draft, though? They got Malachi Starks in the first round. A very good prospect falls to them at 27. It seems like they always get the best player at each position. Kyle Hamilton and Tyler Linderbaum in the same draft, both of those guys are the best at that position in that draft. Speaking of Hamilton, Starks is probably going to start alongside Hamilton at safety, although he can play in the slot as well, so it's good to be versatile. So a good round 1 pick there from the Ravens. And then they get another highly touted prospect in round 2, Mike Green, who fell all the way to pick 59 due to some things ongoing off the field. He led the entire FBS in sacks last year, and he has a chance to do some damage with the Ravens as Kyle Van Noy is 34 years old, which for an edge rusher, you're not going to last too many more years unless your name's like Von Miller. And Odafe Owe going into a contract year might not be back in the future, so Mike Green could see lots of opportunities in the future for the Ravens, even if they don't come right away. And then in the third round, they snag Emory Jones from LSU, who also probably isn't going to start right away, but there is an emphasis there on protecting Lamar Jackson, and that's what this pick was made to do, to give them some more depth at the offensive line position. And then the rest of your picks for the Ravens, inside linebacker Teddy Buchanan out of Cal, offensive tackle Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M, cornerback Bilal Kone from Western Michigan, kicker Tyler Loop from Arizona, who I've already added to my dynasty team, wide receiver LaJohntay Webster, who caught passes from Shadur last year in Colorado, defensive lineman Aeneas Peebles from Virginia Tech, cornerback Robert Longerbeam from Rutgers, and guard Garrett Dellinger from LSU. Sounds like a lot of picks, doesn't it? They had 5 picks during the 6th round, so you're not wrong if you thought that sounded like a lot of picks. Let's talk about their signings. Cooper Rush, a new backup in town for Lamar. Josh Johnson's gone. Cooper Rush is an elite backup. He's 9-5 in his career. He's done great at backing up Dak on multiple instances, a couple of seasons. So I think having him behind Lamar is super advantageous for this team, if something were to happen to Lamar. They also got Lamar a pretty big weapon in DeAndre Hopkins, very reliable veteran receiver. Lamar really hasn't had a guy with that big of a resume on his wide receiving staff ever. I know he had Des Bryant, but Bryant could barely even play then. Hopkins can still play, and I'm excited to see him paired with Lamar. Then you got Jair Alexander reuniting with Lamar, the Louisville boys, and that brings another experienced DB into the young DB room. You know, Marlon Humphrey, Jair Alexander are going to be the 2 vets there, but when you got young guys like Starks, who they just drafted, Nate Wiggins, who came in last year, it's good to have some veteran mentors. And the secondary is looking good in Baltimore, even after losing a few of their guys in that position. Now, what I want to talk about with the Ravens is this their year? They're favored to win the AFC North. I think they will. But can they go far into the playoffs? Lamar Jackson has never won multiple playoff games in the same year. I think their new additions outweigh their free agent losses, as I mentioned. But here's the big thing. Last year, they had 2 first-time coordinators. Todd Monken and Zach Orr have a year under their belt now. Now they know what they're doing. Now they can get the ball rolling with more confidence than they might have had in their first year as coordinators. I think that's a key difference right there. We saw what the Lions did last week. They had 2 new coordinators, and they only put up 7 points. It's going to take a while to gain that confidence, but I think that could be there this year for the Ravens, and if they catch Buffalo, catch Kansas City, whatever AFC team at the right time, Baltimore could be on their way to a deep playoff run. And speaking of the AFC North, it's time to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, who are taking on the Eagles in this preseason game. But first, reviewing the Bengals offseason, Shamar Stewart in the first round. Big contract dispute there, but he has signed. Only had 1.5 sacks last year. Since he doesn't seem too worried about his production, though, if they're taking him in round 1. And I think either way, Hendrickson there or Hendrickson not there, Shamar Stewart will play big-time snaps day 1. And in the second round, the Bengals select Demetrius Knight Jr. out of South Carolina. 6 years of college ball. He's very versatile, can play on the ball or off the ball. He'll probably start day 1 as well with the departure of Jermaine Pratt. And then they get Dylan Fairchild from Georgia in round 3. Also in this draft had Barrett Carter, linebacker out of Clemson, offensive tackle Jalen Rivers from Miami, and running back Taj Brooks from Texas Tech. And then in free agency, they add another running back in Samaje Perine, who is returning to Cincinnati after 2023 in Denver and last season in Kansas City. The Bengals parted ways recently with Zach Moss. That kind of clears the way for Perine and Brooks to back up Chase Brown, who is a great story. A couple of other free agency additions. TJ Slayton, defensive tackle, great at stopping the run there for that Bengals defense. And then linebacker Oren Burks, Super Bowl champion last year, who, along with Demetrius Knight, who they selected in the second round, is probably going to take away the snaps that were once Jermaine Pratt's. So what's going on with Trey Hendrickson? He's holding in. He was away from the team for a brief period, as you might have saw his Instagram story where it said he was in Florida when he's supposed to be with the team. But he's back. Hendrickson's back, but he's not practicing, and he's still seeking that big-time deal. Probably wants Myles Garrett, TJ Watt money, which is around $40 to $41 million. Edge rushers are going to continue to go up in value. In a few years, they could be worth $46, $47 million a year. Who knows? Do I think they'll get this solved before the season? Yeah, I think they will. I think it might just take some settling from Hendrickson. Maybe he won't be in the $40 to $41 million range, but he could be right up there at 37 or 38. We'll see what they pay him. It's going to be tough to cough up the money, though, with all the money that Higgins and Chase are getting as well. Now, what did the Super Bowl champions do in the offseason? Jahad Campbell, round 1 in the draft. Add a stacked linebacker to an already stacked linebacking core. Nakobe Dean is recovering from injury, so Campbell could start day 1. Then in the second round, another guy who can compete for a chance to start, Andrew Makuba, safety out of Texas, led the SEC in interceptions last season. Him and Sidney Brown probably going to compete for that starting spot, be neck and neck. No third-round pick, but they get Ty Robinson, defensive tackle out of Nebraska in the 4th round, who is probably just going to be a rotational defensive tackle behind the Georgia boys of Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. But if they need a break, that's when Robinson gets in. And then the rest of their draft, they get defensive back Mac McWilliams out of UCF, linebacker Smile Munden Jr. out of Georgia, center Drew Kendall from Boston College, quarterback Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, offensive tackle Miles Hinton from Michigan, offensive tackle Cameron Williams from Texas, and then edge Antoine Powell-Ryland from Virginia Tech. And if that sounds like a lot of names there, like Baltimore, the Eagles had 4 sixth-round picks. So that means over a quarter of the picks in the 6th round were made by the Eagles and the Ravens, a couple of bird teams. I wonder if you throw the Falcons in there, what that would be, and whatever other freaking bird teams there are, Cardinals, Seahawks, I don't know. We're not here to answer that question. We're here to talk Thursday night football. The Eagles had a couple of good signings there in free agency. They get A.J. Dillon to replace Kenneth Gainwell, who came to the Berg, and they get linebackers Josh Uche and Azeez Ojulari, a couple of good rotational linebackers there. This defense is stacked. They did lose Darius Slay and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but to compensate for that, they signed Adoree Jackson, another veteran. Not that Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell need any mentoring, but Adoree Jackson is going to be there. Now I want to talk about something that has kind of been irking me. Jalen Hurts has been getting disrespected, like big time. Cam Newton said that Hurts isn't a top 10 QB. Multiple polls that I've seen on ESPN have had 8 other QBs ranked higher than the defending Super Bowl champion. Jalen Hurts is one of the better dual-threat quarterbacks in this league. And for people that say that, all he can do is tush-push, he can't rush, he averages 4.6 yards a carry over his career. People are putting this guy down because he has talent around him. It's not his fault that he has a good GM that can bring in talent, that can make trades for A.J. Brown. Hurts is a great quarterback, and he shouldn't be evaluated on the talent around him. Of course, there's at least 4 or 5 guys better than him in the league. He's probably QB6 or QB7 in the league, but he's not outside of the top 10. We've got 2 more teams to recap their off seasons if you're sticking with me here. The Raiders and Seahawks will start in Vegas. Ashton Genty, how about it? One of the most highly touted running back prospects ever. And he lands in a position where he is going to get the rock. Pete Carroll loves to ground and pound, and I believe Genty is truly going to produce big numbers this season. And then another fun pick in the second round, Jack Beck out of TCU, wide receiver. Wide receiver was a huge position of need here. Vegas doesn't really have anyone outside of Jacoby Myers. They got Trey Tucker, but he's probably no more than a wide receiver 3, so Beck, a chance to have a lot of catches here in his rookie season. whether that be from the slot or from the outside, because he can kind of play anywhere. This was a weird draft for the Raiders. They get Darian Porter in the third round, a 6'4 corner who ran one of the fastest 40s at the Combine, but he's still a bit of a mystery. He made the position switch to corner late in his college career, so we'll see what they can do with him there in Vegas. They also get Caleb Rogers, a guard from Texas Tech, another offensive lineman in Charles Grant from William & Mary, wide receiver Dante Thornton Jr. from Tennessee, defensive tackle Tonka Hemingway from South Carolina, defensive tackle J.J. Pegues from Ole Miss, a couple of quarterbacks back-to-back, Tommy Mellott from Montana State, and Cam Miller from North Dakota State, and then Cody Lindenberg, linebacker from Minnesota. Had some good signings in the offseason as well. I'll start with former Steeler Landon Roberts, who's going to replace former Steeler Robert Spillane. So Spillane goes to New England, and Landon Roberts comes to Vegas. Great veteran experience there. And I'm going to miss Landon Roberts in Pittsburgh. It was really fun to watch him play over the years, over the 2 years he was here. He just brought that intensity, never took any plays off, and I think he's going to do just fine in Vegas on a one-year deal. They also get Alex Kappa to solve their offensive line problems. Started over the years for Tampa Bay, Cincinnati. Could start this year at right guard for the Vegas Raiders. Jeremy Chin, he's going to replace Trayvon Moehrig. Chin started on the Commanders last year, who made it all the way to the NFC title game, so that's cool that Vegas is bringing in a guy like that. And then one more, Jamal Adams, Blitz Boy. He hasn't played more than 10 games since 2021, but that was under Pete Carroll. And that takes me to what I want to talk about next, the Pete Carroll effect. How many former Seahawks have gone to Vegas with the hiring of Pete Carroll? Got Geno Smith, got Jamal Adams, got Colin Johnson, Michael Barrett, Philip Dorsett, and maybe I missed a couple more reuniting with Pete Carroll. Coaches love to do this. Think about how many former Saints went to Denver when Sean Payton got there. How many guys go from New England to Detroit, or whoever follows Matt Patricia or Josh McDaniels, wherever they go. This is just a common thing that happens in the NFL. Coaches love to give their former players new opportunities. And let's look at what Pete Carroll left behind. Mike Macdonald, year 2. His draft, he gets Gray Zabel in the first round out of North Dakota State. A huge need was interior offensive line for the Seahawks. The question is actually, is he going to start at guard or is he going to start at tackle? Either way, he's going to be clearing the paths for Kenneth Walker all year long. Then Nick Eamon-Wari in round 2. He was the best player on the board at the time available. And he actually might not start week 1, but could see the field in some packages. I'm sure they're going to find a way to work him in. He's a second-round pick. And then another second-round pick, Elijah Arroyo, tight end from the U. Noah Fant gone, Arroyo in. Great size, and I'm sure he's going to be blocking a lot as well, as this is going to be a run-heavy Seattle team. Then a fun pick in the third round, Jalen Milroe, who we're going to see tonight. I see him as more of a situational quarterback. You need a guy that can go in and get you a couple yards, QB power. Jalen Milroe. I think that's what he's going to be, at least to open his NFL career, until he can prove himself as a thrower of the football. And then the rest of their draft, they get defensive end Riley Mills from Notre Dame, wide receiver Torrey Horton from Colorado State, fullback Robbie Utes from Alabama, guard Bryce Cabledew from Kansas, running back Damian Martinez, also from the U, offensive tackle Mason Richmond from Iowa, and then wide receiver Ricky White III from UNLV. A big splash move in free agency, a couple of them, Sam Darnold, Cooper Kupp, and DeMarcus Lawrence. Wow. They liked what they saw in Minnesota from Darnold, so they got picks for Geno, and then they got Milroe and Darnold to come into town. And then with Cooper Kupp, it's just a huge makeover to the wide receiver room in Seattle. It's just going to be whether or not the Washington native can stay healthy, because health has been a concern in the past, as it has been for DeMarcus Lawrence as well, who only played 4 games last season. They're hoping he can be as good as he once was in Dallas. Now the key here for Seattle is if Sam Darnold can or cannot repeat his 2024 campaign. It's a new setting, but the offensive coordinator here, Clint Kubiak, did coach Sam Darnold in San Francisco, so that might make Darnold more comfortable back there. He has weapons around him in newly signed Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I don't think they're quite on that Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison level. and I don't think Darnold will go 14-3 again. But I still think I think he's going to have an above-average year. I don't think last year was a fluke at all. I know they lost the final regular season game and went out in the wild card. Darnold could be back to the playoffs this year. And that's enough for recapping teams' off seasons. Let's look at some guys with some local ties to Western Pennsylvania. The Colts have guard Matt Gonsalves from Pitt, tight end Tyler Warren from Penn State, and Rodney Thomas, the defensive back from Central Catholic High School. I played against Rodney's brother in flag football. It didn't end very well. I think they beat us like 63-37 or something. He's a great player. He's at Penn State right now, Xavier Thomas. Anyways, the Ravens have Adisa Isaac, Odafe Owe, a couple of outside linebackers, and Jordan Stout, all from Penn State. Baltimore is basically Penn State grown. And then Anthony Miller, a former Steeler, in that wide receiver room looking to prove himself in Baltimore. Then the Bengals have Geno Stone, defensive back, and long snapper Cal Adamitis, who both of those guys are from the WPIAL. Stone played at Newcastle, Adamitis played at Central Catholic. And then tight end Mike Gesicki from Penn State, and Mitchell Tinsley looking to prove himself there, get a roster spot. He's from Penn State University as well. The Eagles have defensive back A.J. Woods from Pitt, Saquon Barkley, Tariq Castro-Fields, and Jahan Dotson. 3 more players there from Penn State on the Eagles. Now, Vegas doesn't have any former Steelers, any guys from Pitt, Penn State. They have Isaiah Polamalu. Steelers legend Troy Polamalu's nephew is on the Vegas Raiders, and I don't think people realize this. I feel like nobody talks about this. I haven't heard about this since he went into the draft. Then you got the Seahawks. They got Chris Stoll, long snapper from Penn State. They have John Rice Plumlee, who is now listed as a wide receiver. Last year on the Steelers in the preseason, he was listed as a quarterback, but he was returning kicks. That was pretty cool. And then they have another Steeler former kick returner in Steven Sims, who also was a wide receiver, along with wide receiver Cody White, who was a Steeler for a couple of years. So the Seahawks have a couple of former Steelers there. But that's it for the local ties. Let's preview the games. Starting with Indy-Baltimore, where you have Anthony Richardson as the confirmed starter for 1.5 quarters, Shane Steichen said, then Daniel Jones for about half a quarter. The Colts did list Jones or Richardson as QB1. They were both listed as QB1 in the initial depth chart. Jones is actually going to start the next preseason game, but for tonight it's Richardson. Richardson last year in the preseason, got to talk about him a little bit because it was a Thursday night game. He ended up throwing a TD and a pick six in that game. So the ups and downs are there, as that seems to be Richardson's entire career, just up, down, up, down. After that, though, Riley Leonard, fresh off a natty appearance, going to see some time. And then Jason Bean as well. The Ravens have not said whether or not Lamar is going to get reps in this game. We're definitely going to see Cooper Rush, though, and Devin Leary. I don't think there's much of a battle here. Everything's kind of set in stone at the QB room in Baltimore. Shane Steichen is 4-2 in the preseason, has gone 2-1 both seasons. John Harbaugh did not lose a preseason game from 2016 to 2022, but has gone 1-2 in each of the last 2 years. 45-16 overall in the preseason. Colts running back Salvin Ahmed is doubtful after a leg injury in camp. They also have rookie corner Justin Wally and defensive back Charvarius Ward listed as questionable. For the Ravens, it's unlikely that we're going to see Isaiah Likely, who suffered an injury in camp. The over-under is 36.5. Indy is favored by 5.5, but I'm taking the underdog Ravens in this one. Give me Baltimore 20-17. I think in overall depth, the advantage just goes to Baltimore. And I trust Cooper Rush more than I trust Riley Leonard and Jason Bean once Richardson and Daniel Jones are out of this game. And plus, you can't go against John Harbaugh's track record despite the 2 down years. 45-16. I think that'll be 46-16 after this game. Cincy Philly. Joe Burrow is going to play a couple series in this game. Starters are going to play more than ever, according to head coach Zach Taylor. That could be because of the slow starts that Cincy has gotten off to. 1-3 start in each of the last 2 years. And in Burrow's career, Cincy is 7-10-1 in the month of September. Playing starters more in the preseason could help fix those slow starts. After that, we'll see Jake Browning, Desmond Ridder, and Peyton Thorne at the QB position. And on the opposing side, Tanner McKee Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Kyle McCord. I think in the battle right now on the Cincinnati side, Jake Browning has the advantage over the other two just because of his knowledge of the system and everything. On the Eagles side, McKee, he got some regular season experience last year. He also led a game-winning touchdown and two-point conversion drive last year against the Patriots in the preseason. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, on the other hand, he's 1-4 as a starter in the NFL regular season with a 1-10 TD to INT ratio, and he was the return in the Kenny Pickett trade. So he's looking to prove his worth here in this one. Let's look at the coaches' preseason records. Zach Taylor is 3-12. He hasn't won a preseason game since 2022. Nick Sirianni also not great, 3-7, but he was 2-1 last season. Mike Gesicki is questionable, as are A.J. Brown, Nolan Smith, and Byron Young. Sirianni also hasn't said if starters are playing or not, so we really have no idea we don't have anything to base this off of, but since he is minus 5.5 point favorites, the over-under is 37.5. And then I'm taking the Bengals in this one, 23-10, just because of the uncertainty on whether Eagles starters are going to play or not. I think that Cincy first team could lead multiple scoring drives, honestly, if Zach Taylor's a man of his word that they're going to be playing longer than ever in the preseason. And even once the backups get in, I trust Jake Browning to put more points up than Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So give me the Bengals 23-10. One more game, the Pete Carroll Bowl. The QB matchup in this game, Geno Smith against his old team, Aiden O'Connell as well, versus Jalen Milroe and Drew Lock. Sam Darnold isn't playing. Geno Smith is, though. Carroll is playing his starters. Not sure how long, but I think regardless of if it's long or if it's not long, that's still a massive advantage for Vegas, as I'm kind of tipping my pick there. But we'll look at the rest of the QB battle. I think Milroe is going to get a lot of time. And then you got Drew Lock back in town. So that'll be something to watch out for. Drew Lock back in a Seahawks uniform after 2024 as a New York Giant. Pete Carroll, the last time he coached in the preseason with Seattle, went 2-1, 28-21 all time. And then Mike Macdonald in his first year with the Seahawks was 2-1 in the preseason. Carroll, first preseason on the Raiders. Over-under in this game, 37.5. Raiders, 4.5 point favorites. And I've got the Raiders, 23-16. Like I said earlier, even if the Raiders starters only play a couple of series, that's still a massive advantage over a team that isn't playing any starters. So to recap the picks, Ravens over Colts, Bengals over Eagles, Raiders over Seahawks. I hope to return 4-0. We'll see who wins Mr. Thursday Night Player of the Week. I'm just going to do a Player of the Week. I'm not even going to do a Player of the Game. If you want to win the award, you really got to impress me here. You got to be the best player in 3 games. No episode next week, as there are no Thursday night games, but I'll be back for a doubleheader in the preseason finale of Week 3. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys then. Thank you for listening.